What Doesn't Kill You by Ford Vogel. Now let's look at the key idea here, which is that forms of adversity are vital to being and changing into a moral, kind, selfless, and to being a good person that is positive to the people around them. Now this whole idea is just similar to the popular song Stronger by Kelly Clarkson, with the popular lyric, "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger." And we'll be looking at how adversity will help change a person while also mirroring it through the arc of Tony Stark in the MCU and the Iron Man movies. Now let's look first at how a lack of hardship can be detrimental, especially growing up. Now, from research, I found that there are two core types of hardship in youth, that being financial and intellectual. First, quoting from Sal McDeb from Christ University, they said that top businessmen and leaders, such as Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, FDR, and Hitler, often had many narcissistic leadership traits, and that this was correlated with a high intelligence in them. They said that while it's unknown how big of a correlation there is between narcissism and high intelligence, there's most certainly a correlation. Then from Sean R. Martin, Stephanie Cole, and Todd Woodruff from the University of Toronto, they found that as economic inequality rises, we expect to see an increase in leaders with wealthy parents that are more narcissistic and that do not rely on classic leadership behaviors to lead, showing how wealth in youth can lead to more narcissistic tendencies as an adult. Now, Tony Stark showed the three key narcissism symptoms from the Mayo Clinic, that being only wanting the best of everything, treating others horribly, and thinking that they're better than everyone else. This is clearly shown by him in the first Iron Man movie, but through adversity, he is able to go back on the tendencies that he learned from growing up and grow into a much better person. We'll look at the first major change, which is moral. Now, Tony Stark got most of his money by selling weapons to people. And then one day, while he was with the US Army, he got attacked by a terrorist group called the Ten Rings and was kidnapped. And while he was kidnapped, quoting from Matthew Winshaw, an English professor from the University of Virginia, he doesn't see the terrorists that are hurting people and killing people. He sees that rather it will be the people that are killed and lives that were destroyed because of the weapons that his company, Stark Industry, produces. Now he is kidnapped and he is told to make a weapon for the terrorists or else he would die. But he does not listen to them. He does not take this sitting down. No, he pushes back and he creates his own Iron Man suit in order to successfully escape. And then as soon as he comes home, he immediately, in a press conference, he talks about how his eyes were opened and how he immediately shuts down the weapons production, showing a common behavior trope after traumatic events called post-traumatic growth, where from the Department of Clinical and Experimental Medicine at the University of Pisa, Italy, they talk about how post-traumatic growth after an event can lead to a loss of an old identity and can kind of form into a new personality, showing much growth and being much more flexible to change, as was clearly shown by him after his experience. But even after all that, he was still an incredibly unpleasant person to be around, even while being much more moral, which brings to the second major change brought through adversity, being emotional. Even quoting from SHIELD, the governmental agency, he did not work well with others. And the CDC says that social connections are vital to being able to lead a healthy and anxiety-free life, which then is shown that he does not play well with others in echoing words with Captain America aboard the helicarrier. Big man in a suit of armor. Take that off, what are you? Genius, billionaire, playboy philanthropist. I know guys with none of that worth 10 of you. Yeah, I've seen the footage. The only thing you really fight for is yourself. You're not the guy to make the sacrifice play. Now, the adversity that he faces when Loki attacks New York forces him to work together with all of the other heroes and be vulnerable and rely on them in order to succeed. And quoting from Marcus Thompson in Simone Biles, An Act of Courage. If the act is not vulnerable, it is not courageous. He clearly shows courage through being vulnerable and relying on others. And eventually, when a nuclear bomb is sent to New York while there were still people there, he proves Captain America wrong and does make the sacrifice play by attempting to sacrifice himself in order to win the day. But there's a major counter to how adversity changes people, which is the mental distress. Now, a major scene in Iron Man 3, which takes place after the Avengers, he is in a diner when a kid comes up to him with a drawing of the Battle of New York asking for a signature, where he immediately runs outside and starts freaking out and has a raised heartbeat, but nothing is wrong with him medically, which, from the Mayo Clinic again, are all very clear signs of a panic attack induced by PTSD. However, later in that movie, through his encounter with the Mandarin in that movie, he learned how to accept his vulnerability and rely on other people around him, which, from the US Department of Veteran Affairs, is the best way to overcome trauma. This mirrors Through the Tunnel from The Habit of Learning from Doris Lessing, where after going through the tunnel, our main character, Joey, is incredibly traumatized, and he hates looking at the ocean after coming out of the tunnel and having almost died. Yet when he comes up home and lays in the arms of his mother, all of that washes away, and he is proud of what he has accomplished and brags about it to her. Through adversity, we see Stark turn from a narcissist to a good person, to a selfless person, to a hero who is able to be vulnerable while also being selfless and helping others. But what's the takeaway here? Well, from peer-reviewed journal from E. Torrey Higgins and others from various colleges with relevant PhDs, they led a study with people trying to solve anagrams while a very distracting noise was playing in the background. And they found that those who opposed the interference and worked harder to complete the anagrams did it much better, and that actually increased the value that they got afterwards, opposed from the people who did not oppose it and just coped with it, as they were lazy and did not work hard, and so therefore decreased the reward, which means that everyone should try to get to embrace the adversity and work through it. And then finally, with one more from Mark Siri from the Department of Psychology at the University of Buffalo, they found that those who had gone through adversity earlier in life would be more resilient towards it later, proving that in fact, what does not kill you does make you stronger. Thank you.
Thanks, Ford. If you detach, and then I'll ask you questions, okay? So for the first one, how did some of the preliminary information you gathered, how did that help to inform your research?
Well, some of the preliminary information that I gathered was, of course, rewatching all of the Marvel movies because I immediately knew I wanted to do this. Originally, I was actually going to do it on why adversity was bad for you, but after seeing the movies again and noticing just how that adversity actually helped him grow into a better person, that very clearly led me down the road of seeing just how each of those things were mirrored and was realistic to how one would actually grow from adversity.
Terrific. And then as a follow-up to that, what additional questions emerged as you worked through this process?
Well, what additional questions emerged? I would say just how exactly the post-traumatic growth opposes with the PTSD, as obviously PTSD is a bad thing, and all of these experiences are bad. And I'd say that the question just emerged that I couldn't find a good answer for of, is it really more beneficial than it is negative? And well, a lot of the research that I showed comes to the conclusion, yes, it is more beneficial. That still is a question that I think needs to be researched.
Fantastic. Thank you.